Protests erupted overnight outside the house of Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Hundreds crowding the streets as the president announced that federal agents will be deployed to the Windy City. He made that announcement a couple days earlier.
He did. And then a few streets away, there were cranes that moved into the city's Grant Park, and they did tear down that Christopher Columbus statue. That's the monument that was placed on a truck and driven away following pressure from all the protesters.
Really? The one cops had to protect. Meanwhile, in Portland, protesters hit city streets for the 57th straight night with no end in sight. You had tear gas filling the air as police try getting the massive crowds under control. President Trump placing tactical teams on standby as violence is expected to escalate in several U.S. cities like Seattle this weekend. And Seattle's going to be interesting. They're going to have to control the crowd without any tear gas or any type of
conventional methods.
Yeah, traditional methods, because they don't want to do that anymore. Let's bring in Florida Congressman Michael Waltz, a colonel in the Army National Guard, former Green Beret commander. So I guess let's begin, if we can, Congressman, with what's happening in Chicago. Can you imagine if you're one of the 52 cops that get hurt protecting a Columbus statue, and in the middle of the night they take it down while no one else is looking days later?
You know, Brian, I listened to that the audio and the video of the shooting outside the funeral home a few days ago. I've been in a lot of firefights. That sounded like something we've been in Afghanistan or in Iraq, not in one of America's greatest cities. I mean, that was just the amount of bullets and rounds and sustained fire was just incredible. These communities, these families deserve better than this. And you know, at some point, they're going to go to the ballot box and say enough is enough. These inner cities have been run by the same people with the same ideology, with no results or worse results for way too long. And, you know, you would think that they would be welcoming all the federal help they can get. I know we're seeing other sheriffs down in Florida that are asking for it and welcoming it.
Well, you know, they didn't ask for help in Portland, but the feds, under the direction of the president, sent 100 officers there to protect federal assets. Of course, when you listen to the Speaker of the House, she doesn't look at it as something positive. She looks at it like this. Listen, Congressman.
The use of stormtroopers under the guise of law and order is a tactic that is not appropriate to our country in any way.
Okay, so that has become a talking point on the political left, where they say that these federal agents and officers who are in there are stormtroopers, whereas in reality, Congressman, they're just there to protect the local federal stuff that the locals will not protect.
Now, look, for the Speaker of the House of the Representatives to call these law enforcement agents, these heroes, stormtroopers is disgusting, it's offensive, it's irresponsible, and I call on her to rescind that language and to change that language. They are there on proper authority. They're defending federal
she doubled
property.
Down. She's not.
So
yeah, well, and that's just sad. And for all of those federal law enforcements out there, at least from my perspective, my foxhole, I have your back. And that's what they need to be hearing from their elected leaders. They are being used lawfully and within their authorities, as they have been for many years, when local authorities need help and they ask for it, or when they're not taking the actions they should, all the way back to the civil rights movement and beyond, then there is an appropriate place for federal agents, law enforcement agents, police officers to come in.
And the Conference of Jewish Affairs, they criticized Nancy Pelosi because they said the stormtroopers were Hitler's private regiment. They were used to round up innocent Jews to put them in concentration camps. All right, let's talk about the RNC, because you represent the state of Florida. You live in Florida. President moved the RNC from Charlotte, North Carolina, down to Jacksonville. Then we saw the numbers go up, so the president canceled it yesterday. Listen to this.
Setting an example. We don't want to have people so close together. We've had such enthusiasm. Everybody wanted to go there. You know, we went to North Carolina. We wanted to do it there. It was all set. And we were going to build a beautiful facility. And it got hit hard. And the governor then really, He could have treated us better, Democrat governor. But we are actually opening up there, and then we'll make our ways. It won't be your typical convention, I can say that, but it's going to be very safe.
Congressman, he says the timing is not right. Do you agree?
Well, I'll be honest, Ainley, I'm disappointed. I was on the host committee. Jacksonville's my hometown, and especially the business community. I'll admit I might have had a bourbon or two last night at the news, but at the end of the day, with COVID, with the economy, with the violence erupting around our cities, with the race to get the vaccine and get our economy back on track, the threats we're facing with China especially, I think the president makes a tough call that commanders-in-chief have to make and focus on governing, and will focus on governing. And we'll find a forum for him to walk through the amazing things that he has actually gotten done in just 3 years, despite everything being thrown at him, and then his vision for the next 4 years. And I think when you look at the vision for our party and who's in it, those who have served and those who have sacrificed, versus, I think, the vision of the other side, I think the choice is going to be clear in November.
Yeah, it's pretty clear, too. The president's got this mission statement now. It is going to be discipline, attacking the virus. The discipline he showed in 2016 from September to November, he's doing it now with the virus and law and order, and we're seeing it every day. And this is another example, in my humble opinion. Now, he also talked yesterday in his press conference about the need to reopen schools, not because he wants them open, because for the health and the well-being of the kids. And knowing that the virus is a very limited threat when it comes to children, and it needs to be handled when it comes to teachers, there is a downside, and that's kids aren't going to learn, and their productivity is going to be curtailed, let alone the social distancing and what it does to kids. So we put up, the CDC has released guidelines to reopen schools, implement mitigation changes, practice good hygiene, disinfect surfaces, repurpose buildings, move classes outside when possible, keep students in pods throughout the day. Schools encouraged to develop a plan when someone is sick, quick reaction team. And he also said, if you choose not to open up the school, let the money follow the kid to a private school. I don't know how that gets implemented. Your thoughts, because your governor also wants the same thing. Teachers unions pushing back. Where do you stand, Congressman?
Brian, if there is one thing that we are hearing, that I'm hearing from constituents loud and clear, is find a way to safely open the schools. Period. We have to get these kids back to school. We can't get the economy going back again unless we get kids back in school. And here's what's so frustrating for me that's getting overlooked in this conversation. Rural children out in rural communities, they don't often have the broadband to get 30 kids on Zoom. They are much more isolated, and they're not being taken care of. And then the other piece is, a lot of white-collar families, they can stay at home, work from home, have their kids at home. But our blue-collar families, you can't go be a brick mason or a plumber and go out and work if you've got kids at home.
What about urban families?
You can't afford the health care. Urban family, look, the children have to get back. There are some real public health downsides here in depression and isolation, in the loss and learning that is going on here. We have to find a way. Keeping these kids out of school is not an option, and we'll have money in this next coronavirus stimulus package to help these schools with these costs. But it's just, we have to get them back in.
Yeah, absolutely. Because for a lot of kids, those are the only hot meals they get all day, and some of them get 2 meals a day. And if there's no school, a lot of kids are going hungry.
And education. I mean, it
absolutely,
ended up being a full year, basically. Most kids were out of school at the beginning of March.
All of that because of the pandemic. Congressman, no doubt about it, the number one issue is the pandemic. And, the president will be judged on how he handled it. When Joe Biden was asked about, if you were president, what would you do differently? He spouted, Karl Rove detailed this yesterday in the Wall Street Journal. He recited a number of things, but they're things that the federal government was already doing. Everything he said, Donald Trump and the administration had already been doing. So it'll be interesting. Every time the Democrats go, well, the federal response was inadequate, nonetheless, that's exactly what Joe Biden says he'd do.
Yeah, look, I mean, if we look at the race, Operation Warp Speed, and the progress that's being made to get done in the vaccine, which normally takes years, we're looking at months. I'm talking to a vaccine manufacturer to be located in Northeast Florida to crank out over 100 million vials.
Wow.
What he has done in terms of surging the military, surging Reserve and National Guard, and all of the other pieces to get PPE stood up and out to our communities that need it when we wholly as a government under President Obama and Biden became totally dependent on China for many of these needs. Look, I think he's shown absolute leadership here, but there is a place for local government. So in Florida, we're seeing, in my part of the state, hospitalization rates fall. In other parts, the hospitalization rates go up. And those local communities and officials are taking appropriate action. But the Democrats want to see national mandates for everything. And, you know, a rancher in Wyoming doesn't get treated the same as a family in inner city New York.
Yeah.
That, you know, you need more nuanced and local approaches. And I think the president has rightly looked to governors and looked to mayors and looked to local officials to take the policy steps that they need, but then get the resources from the federal government. And that's the right approach.
Congressman, thanks for joining us.
All right. Thanks so much.
Have a good
Welcome.
weekend.